In the early 1980s, Seiko was a pioneer in the art of multifunctionality, something never achieved with mechanical watches, and a new market was in the making. Seiko engaged in the practice of production and assembly automation, which caused a rapid decrease in production costs. This gave Seiko a major advantage in its competition against its Swiss rivals, which had not yet industrialized quartz production. And soon enough, the Seiko boom was everywhere, from pop culture to the big screen. This classic Seiko, the 7828 7000 chronograph model, was worn by Sigourney Weaver in the classic sci-fi film Aliens. And in the early scenes of A View to Kill, Roger Moore as 007 wears a Seiko chronograph 7828 7020. And who can forget the Seiko H558, made famous by none other than Arnold Schwarzenegger, worn in the film Predator and at least 2 other of his films. But before the Seiko revolution and the quartz crisis, things were good. The post-World War II era saw high demand for Swiss watches, and by the end of the 1960s, Swiss manufacturers had 50% of the watch market worldwide. Swiss manufacturers were exporting watches to markets previously unexplored. In response to the quartz crisis, manufacturers such as Omega were stubborn to take the issue serious, and many of their quartz releases during the 70s and 80s were not too memorable. And this was the case for many of the old Swiss houses. There were a few notable exceptions, which are collectible today, such as the Rolex Oyster Quartz, and some of the Tag Heuer divers released in the late 80s. But Swiss exports turned around in 1983 with the introduction of the Swatch, a cheap and plastic fun watch, fashion that ticks as it was coined. Innovation, provocation, fun forever aptly describe the Swatch approach to production development and marketing. And Swatch was instrumental in saving the Swiss watch industry and helped bring an end to the quartz crisis. The 80s brought us many watches we love today, one worn by the young Bond, Timothy Dalton, in License to Kill. The 5513 Submariner was the last Rolex to be worn by Bond in a film. The watch epitomizes the simplicity and durability many of his watch enthusiasts love. And the 1980s brought with it plenty of gold flair, and brands like Rolex brought us intricate and bright dials, or those with black onyx or tiger's eye. We would even see a gold Speedmaster from Omega, and the brand would launch the Constellation, which would be available in quartz and mechanical. And even the Seamaster line would have a stable of quartz pieces. And in 1980s excessive fashion, we have the gold Cartier Santos, which was worn by the notorious Gordon Gekko in the film Wall Street. And another Japanese developer of electronics would shake things up with its unique and forward-thinking watches. Even though Casio production peaked in the early 80s, with the introduction of the G-Shock, their priorities shifted, but Casio would become a cult classic for years to come. And the G-Shock would be one of the most reliable watches on the market, tried and tested from the most dangerous of professions. This decade would also bring to us a number of oddities into the watch world, such as the chronoform Transformer watch, and the technically faulty Black Watch by Sinclair, and those colorful Tag Heuer racing watches, and the Casio calculator and databank watches. There was even a multi-time zone watch from Breitling. The 1980s had plenty of high and lows in the world of watchmaking. And with Patek Philippe creating the Calibre 89 in the year 1989, there was proof that the mechanical watches were far from done. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe if you haven't, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.